A very important article was just published on WorldNet Daily, and I wanted to actually bring it to everybody's attention, specifically to the attention of those people who are stalking me and watching my goings-on the internet. So this video is published for you, the foster care parents and the social workers who are stalking me. I just want you to know that I'm aware, and everyone should be aware. There are important people trying to shut you people down. And so I'd like to read this article. This is published Thursday, November 4th. It was posted at 1 a.m. on November 3rd by Phyllis Schlafly on the WorldNet Daily Commentary, titled "Shut Down Child Protective Services." When the liberals and the feminists, including Hillary Clinton, began saying the village raised the child, most people recognized village as a metaphor for government. We're now seeing how intrusive big government nannyism really is. Operating under various names, state agencies such as Child Protective Services, or CPS, have been assigned the task of protecting kids from abuse or neglect by any adults, especially by their own parents. A new study casts doubt on the value of CPS. Child Protective Services, which rushes into action based on anonymous tips, investigated more than 3 million cases of suspected child abuse in 2007. Alleged to be at similar high for abuse, researchers examined the records of 595 children nationwide and tracked them from ages 4 to 8. The researchers concluded that CPS's intervention did little or nothing to improve the lives of the children, and there was no difference between children in the families CPS investigated and did not investigate. The social scientists looked at all the factors known to increase the risk for abuse or neglect: social support, family functioning, poverty, caregiver education, and depressive symptoms, plus child anxiety, depression, and aggressive behavior. The Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act was passed by Congress in 1974, and about 45 states passed complementary state laws. Taxpayers' money began to flow big time to the bureaucrats. And again, I want to point out what so many of us are saying so often: this CPS game is all about the money. Anyway, back to the article. The research results were reported in the October issue of the Archives of Pediatric and Adolescent Medicine. The report was accompanied by an editorial entitled "Child Protective Services Has Outlived Its Usefulness." That's the article I just showed on the other screen. It argued that CPS should not be engaged in law enforcement. If it's a crime, call the police. If it's neglect, call a public health nurse. If it's an unsuitable living condition, call the appropriate social services. Unfortunately, the researchers did not look at the harm caused by CPS bureaucrats who arrive unannounced with the police, interfere with a functioning family, and often take the children away from their parents and turn them over to foster care. When Congress and state legislatures vote on taxpayer appropriations next year, CPS bureaucrats should be required to demonstrate whether any good outweighs the harm. And to stop right there and comment, you notice this is where the thinking has gotten today. It's undisputed that CPS causes harm. Have you ever been to a grocery store or a department store and saw a little child that just lost sight of their parents? The terror, the fear, the panic that strikes them, that they're just completely, their world's just been shattered. I lost my mommy. Where's my? Now imagine that poor little 4-year-old or that 6-year-old in their own home. Strangers come barging in with police officers, grab them by the arm, and take them out of the house to the car. You're leaving your home. You're never coming back, little child. We're taking you. We're strangers, and we're taking you away from your mommy and daddy. Yes, your mommy is screaming and crying, but don't worry. You're leaving, and you'll never see her again. Imagine. Every CPS intervention causes harm to children. But to the point of the article, she points out the outweighing the harm. It's undisputed CPS does cause harm. Now, often we would say, does the good outweigh the harm? And in this case, we're with CPS, we're to the point where we're questioning, is there even any good occurring? So this is a really, really sick and upside down situation. But the foster parents make big bucks, so you're not going to hear any complaining from that angle. On to the article. From here on out, she discusses particular cases that are going on. So I'll just quickly read through that. The main point I wanted to make was what we've read already. 2 cases involving Child Protective Services are now before the U.S. Supreme Court. The High Court has just agreed to take a case involving the interrogation of an elementary child at school by a CPS caseworker and a deputy sheriff about possible sexual abuse at home. This is a Fourth Amendment case, Camreta and Alford v. Green. Oregon investigators are appealing a lower court ruling that they violated a 9-year-old girl's constitutional right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure when they interviewed her for 2 hours at school without a warrant, a court order, parental consent, or exigent circumstances. How many factors does there have to be? No warrant, no court order, no parental consent, and no exigent circumstances. They got caught red-handed, and they got busted, and they got found guilty of violating. And what do? They spend unbelievable amounts of taxpayer money, and they go and appeal the court ruling. Anyway, back to the article. This case could have a significant impact nationwide. Unfortunately, some government agencies are more solicitous in guaranteeing constitutional due process to vicious criminals than to... And that's the crux of the matter. The government agencies are protecting the criminals and destroying family. The other CPS case now before the Supreme Court, Los Angeles County v. Humphreys, has already been briefed and argued. This case involves the constitutionality of the Child Abuse Index, or list, maintained by Child Protective Services in California. More than 800,000 people are now listed on California's Child Abuse Index. These listings are very hurtful to individuals since employers consult the list before hiring employees to work with children. CPS puts people on this list from agency reports based on anonymous tips and suspicion, not proof. It's mighty easy for a malicious wife or ex-wife to allege child abuse as part of her game plan to get child custody or increased child support. Again, it's all about the money, and it's real easy to make a destructive accusation and ruin a man's life so the woman can get some money, so the CPS can get some money, whatever. The issue in this case is the fact that there are no procedures, no standards, and no criteria for a wrongly accused person to get his name off the Child Abusers Index. The Supreme Court is reviewing the Ninth Circuit ruling that Craig Humphreys, whom a court pronounced innocent of all charges, had a quote-unquote nightmarish encounter with the California system, and, quote, there is no effective procedure for Humphreys to challenge this listing, end quote. In 2006, Congress toyed with a plan to create a national child abuse registry. The plan was abandoned because of the unreliability of state lists and lack of due process. We live in a place in America now in a time where state lists are not reliable, and the states notoriously deny people due process. Back to the article. The Child Abuse Registry should not be confused with the Sex Offender Registry, which lists only those who have been convicted of sex crimes. The Child Abuse Registry puts men on the list who have never been proven guilty of anything or even charged with a crime, a punishment that is entirely contrary to our legal assumption of being innocent until proven guilty. Humphreys has been trying to clear his name for 9 years. Congress should defund these abusive registries, and I hope the Supreme Court declares them unconstitutional. So, this is very real. Not just in California. In Washington, if you've ever been accused, just simply accused, you have an absolute obligation in this twisted mindset that you have to go forward and prove yourself innocent. Welcome to the Nazi America. And thank you for taking the time to watch this all the way through.